For my final project, I will be discussing how hearing, memory functions, and stressors all relate to each other in psychology. First, let me start by explaining each one of these topics. First, hearing. Hearing, or auditory perception, is the ability to perceive sounds by detecting vibration. Vibrations on the eardrum is what allows us to hear. Next, memory functions. Memory refers to the processes that are used to acquire, store, retain, and later retrieve information. There are three major processes involved in memory: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Memory encoding is the crucial first step to creating a new memory. It allows the perceived item of interest to be converted into a construct that can be stored within the brain and then recalled later for short-term and long-term memory. Encoding happens in the hippocampus, which is located in the medial temporal lobe of the brain. Storing refers to the process of which placing newly acquired information into memory, which is modified in the brain for easier storage. This takes place in the prefrontal cortex and the hippocampus. The last process in memory is called retrieval. It refers to the subsequent reaccessing of events or information from the past which has been previously encoded and stored in the brain. This takes place in the neocortex and the hippocampus. Lastly, stressors. This can be chemical or biological agent, environmental condition, external stimulus, or an event seen as causing stress to an organism. Now to explain how all of these relate in psychology. Hearing and memory are related because what you hear gets encoded and turned into a memory stored into your brain. This is where stressors come into play. Stressors can affect your perception of what you heard, which also affects how you encode the memory of what you heard. This can also affect the retrieval of the memory under pressure or having stress around you, that you might not be able to retrieve it in the right way or on time. An example of this could be cramming for a test. Cramming for a test, you're racing against the clock to memorize all the things needed to pass the test. Time is a stressor since you are trying to retain information the night before to pass the test. Stress can also cause your brain to skew the information you are trying to learn. This can also affect the coding of the memory of the answers for the test, leading to an obstructed retrieval of that memory. When all is said and done, stress just makes things worse. Another example of this would be auditory processing disorder, or ADP. This is a hearing problem that only affects about 5% of school-aged children. Kids with this condition, also known as central auditory processing disorder, can't process what they hear in the same way other kids do. This is because their ears and brain don't fully coordinate. Something interferes with the way the brain recognizes and interprets sounds, especially speech. Kids with this condition can usually hear sounds that are delivered one at a time in a very quiet environment. The problem is that they usually don't recognize slight differences between sounds and words, even when the sounds are loud and clear enough to be heard. These kinds of problems usually happen when there is background noise, which is often the case in social situations. So kids with ADP can have trouble understanding what is being said to them when they're in noisy places like a playground, sports events, the school cafeteria, or parties. APD affects how sounds are perceived, which can lead to improper encoding of knowledge in school to the brain. With the added stressors of a loud classroom environments of regular kids, this can make things even worse. With the disorder only allowing them to hear and remember one sound at a time in order to process it clearly, this can make it so that the kid is only focused on one voice or one noise at a time, and it is usually not the teachers. This usually means that kids with APD are placed in smaller classrooms with accommodations and less stress. Finally, hearing and memory go hand in hand, and if there's something wrong with one, then the other won't work properly. When stress is added to all this, it makes everything way worse.